Imagine you are out for a walk one day and see a runway train hurtling down the tracks towards 5 people who are tied down onto the tracks by some sort of an evil villain. The train has lost its brakes, and if nothing is done, all 5 will die. There is, however, one hope. There is a fork on the tracks just before the 5 people, and on the other track there is only one person tied down. And you happen to be close enough to the tracks to pull a lever and divert the train onto the track with a 1, saving the 5. But is killing this innocent man the right thing to do? And most importantly, will you, and should you, pull the lever? Well, in terms of numbers, it clearly is. You save 5 people by killing the 1. This system of thinking is known as consequentialism. As the name suggests, it holds the consequences or the net benefit and harm of an action to judge the rightness of an action. When faced with a moral dilemma, such as this trolley problem created by contemporary English philosopher Philip of Foot, consequentialism states that we should pull the lever because it maximizes the good by saving the 5 while allowing 1 to die, resulting in a net gain of 4 lives. But is this reasoning correct? Will it hold up in real life? After all, in real life, it would be very hard to pull the lever and watch someone die as a result. But it might be worse to hold back and watch 5 times as many people die when you could have done something. To figure this out, the BBC conducted a survey with more than 1,000 of its listeners and found that between 80 to 90% of the people would pull the lever. In a recent Michigan State study led by psychologist David Navarrete, 147 participants had to make the same choice, while wearing a head-mounted virtual reality device that projected the scene as well as the avatars of people who would die. Oh, and another thing, the potential victims were screaming as the train approached. But even in this study, nearly 90% of the people, 133 out of 147, pulled the lever in the simulation. In both studies, the proportion of people who would pull the lever is very high. Most of who didn't choose to pull the lever responded that they did not want to get involved, or just wanted nature to run its course, if there's anything natural about this scenario. But twisting the problem, imagine now that there is only one track with 5 people tied down to it. The same train has lost its brakes and is now hurtling down the tracks. You're standing on a footbridge over the tracks, and there happens to be a very large man near the railings. If you push him off the footbridge onto the tracks, you know he is heavy enough to slow down and stop the train before it hits the 5 people. Assuming you have the strength, should you do it? This is a tougher case, and more people respond no, even though the consequences are no different from the original. 1 dies, 5 are saved. What's the difference? Many people point out that now there is a physical contact with the person involved. People also point out that the 2 cases are different because now you intend to push and kill the person to save the 5, whereas in the first scenario you intend to pull the lever to save the 5 and the death of 1 person is a side effect. Neither of the 2 dilemmas perfectly justify our course of action, and this indecisiveness may have to do with our emotions. When a Harvard psychology research led by Professor Joshua D. Green hooked up subjects' brains to fMRI machines while presenting both scenarios, the footbridge case stirred up brain regions associated with emotion more than the other. Also, the research suggests that the negative emotional response caused by the footbridge case is related to the more personal nature of action, such as pushing a person. Both cases provide an interesting insight into our ability to make moral decisions. When is it acceptable to sacrifice a life to save more? Should our emotions, rather than reason alone, dictate our moral decisions? Is morality hardwired into our brains? Feel free to share your ideas below.